Right now, that's the sound of dinner. But in 15 years, it could be the sound of history. What if I told you one of the biggest drivers of climate change isn't oil or cars, it's dinner? More specifically, beef. And what if the solution to global warming and a looming food crisis was sitting right here in a sterile silver vat? This is the story of lab-grown meat, or as scientists call it, cultivated meat. It's no longer science fiction, it's real, and it's about to change everything on our plates. The global food system is responsible for about one-third of all human-caused greenhouse gases. Within that, livestock are the single largest source. We're talking about 15% of all global emissions directly linked to raising, feeding, and processing animals. That's more than the entire world's cars, trucks, ships, and planes combined. The biggest culprit? Methane, a greenhouse gas that traps heat dozens of times more powerfully than carbon dioxide. Every cow on Earth produces hundreds of liters of methane every single day, just by digesting grass. Multiply that by over 1 billion cattle, and you get an invisible but devastating cloud surrounding the planet. Then there's land use. Nearly 80% of all agricultural land is tied up in livestock, either for grazing or growing the vast amounts of corn and soy that feed them. That's a staggering figure, especially when you realize livestock provide less than 20% of the world's calories. To keep up with meat demand, forests are being cleared at an alarming rate. In the Amazon alone, vast swaths of rainforest, one of Earth's greatest carbon sinks, are burned or cut down to make way for cattle ranches and feed crops. Each acre lost means less carbon absorbed, fewer species surviving, and a greater risk of ecological collapse. When land is overused, it loses its ability to recover. Soil erodes, rivers dry up, and natural carbon storage disappears. What's left are vast monocultures, fields that look green from space but are biologically dead. And all of it, the deforestation, the feed crops, the methane, loops back into the same crisis: climate change. Hotter temperatures lead to less fertile soil, more drought, and ultimately, higher food prices and food insecurity. But the damage isn't just environmental. It's biological. Industrial livestock farms pack millions of animals into tight spaces, creating perfect conditions for new diseases to emerge. Many of the world's most dangerous viruses, including COVID-19, SARS, and avian flu, originated in animals before jumping to humans. By moving meat production into controlled, sterile facilities, we can drastically reduce the risk of another pandemic. We need protein. The world's growing population depends on it. But the way we make it now is destroying ecosystems, heating the atmosphere, and endangering the health of the very species we belong to. Here's where the tiniest piece of life changes everything. A cell sample, just a few harmless stem cells from a living animal, can become an entire steak. Those cells are placed in large bioreactors, which look like beer fermentation tanks. They're fed a nutrient broth of sugars, amino acids, and minerals, the same things cells love in a real animal body. And then nature takes over. The cells grow. They multiply. They become muscle and fat. Real meat. The only difference? No animal is raised or slaughtered. In 2013, at a press event in London, Dr. Mark Post placed a small, ordinary-looking beef patty on a plate. To the naked eye, it was just a burger. But to science, it was a revolution. That patty was the world's first lab-grown beef, created entirely from animal cells without slaughtering a single cow. It had taken 3 months to grow and cost $325,000. It didn't come from a farm, it came from a lab, and that moment changed how humanity thought about food forever. The science behind it was simple but groundbreaking. A few muscle stem cells taken harmlessly from a cow were fed nutrients and coaxed into growing just like they would inside a living body. Over time, the cells multiplied and formed fibers, the same muscle tissue that makes up a steak or burger. The first bite, according to testers, was close to meat, just a little dry. But everyone in that room knew they weren't tasting lunch. They were tasting the future. Fast forward just over a decade, and that $325,000 burger now costs around $8. A 99.99% drop in price in 12 years, faster than smartphones or solar panels ever fell. What drove the change? Scale, automation, efficiency. Bioreactors are larger, more precise, and nutrient media that once cost thousands now cost pennies. By the mid-2030-50s, experts predict cultivated meat could be cheaper to produce than traditional beef. No land to clear, no feed to grow, no water for millions of animals, no years waiting for cows to mature. Just clean, efficient production that turns nutrients directly into protein. Nature perfected, technology refined. What began as a single $325,000 patty is now the seed of a global industry worth billions. The first cell phone analogy fits perfectly. The first burger paved the way for a complete food revolution. And for the first time, feeding the planet might not require destroying it. Not everyone is on board. Farmers worry about losing livelihoods and identity. Consumers question whether lab meat can ever feel natural. And honestly, that's fair. Food isn't just science, it's culture and emotion. But every food revolution in history, bread, beer, cheese, once started in a vat, and each time innovation won. If we get this right, the payoff isn't just big, it's civilization shifting. Cultivated meat could use up to 99% less land and produce up to 96% fewer greenhouse gas emissions than beef. Imagine cattle pastures transforming back into forests and wetlands. Reclaimed lands could pull billions of tons of carbon from the atmosphere, cooling the planet and restoring lost habitats. Rivers would run cleaner, soil would hold more water, and ecosystems could breathe again. And there's another benefit, our health. Industrial livestock farms pack thousands of animals into tight spaces, creating perfect conditions for viruses to jump to humans. By moving production into sterile bioreactors, we drastically cut the risk of another pandemic, the kind that sparked COVID-19. This won't end farming, it will evolve, from mass production to precision food manufacturing. Farmers can pivot to high-value crops, specialty meats, or renewable energy, while cultivated facilities quietly meet global protein demand. Cleaner air, revived ecosystems, and a lower risk of pandemics. A food system that heals both the planet and the people who depend on it. In the next 15 years, this transformation will accelerate faster than anyone expects. By 2040, the protein in your burger might not come from a cow at all, but from a clean, efficient facility that uses 100 times less land and produces only a fraction of the pollution. Cultivated meat will move from high-end restaurants to supermarket shelves, powering a new global industry built around sustainability. Countries that once relied on vast herds could grow food locally, reducing deforestation, transport emissions, and even global hunger. This isn't just about saving the planet, it's about reinventing how we eat and how we live. With technology that finally works with nature, not against it. A future where dinner is cleaner, safer, and more sustainable. And where feeding the world no longer costs the earth itself. So here's the question. If this was on your plate tomorrow, would you try it? Would you embrace lab-grown meat, or does it still feel too strange? And if you want to keep up with the breakthrough technologies reshaping our world, hit subscribe before you go.